Hello everyone, and welcome to this month's GreenSQL webinar regarding top 10 database breaches of 2013 and how we think and we believe you should avoid them. So first of all, thank you for each and every one of you for joining us today. And during this session, at the end, I will leave some time for question and answers if you have some. Please feel free that besides that you may contact us at any time over support@greensql.com or info@greensql.com, and we'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. So, without a doubt, and that's probably the way that I start each and every session, is that the number one global security challenge is information theft. And there are endless new analysts who says that quite clear regarding how common is information breaches and how common is information stealth. And as time passes, we see that it's not really getting better. A lot of, I think, market analysts and a lot of reporters in the news will say, listen, the number of amount have degraded this year. And this is really interesting because even though we see that the publicly informed known breaches is getting a little bit smaller than previous year, but we still see huge attack and much more sophisticated attacks, which is really interesting because when I'm talking about sophisticated, I'm saying now that not only that hackers have a huge backed up financial finance, but more than that, they are aiming about the holy grails, about the huge databases, about the huge companies, and they are quite successful. As time passes, we see it more and more. One of the major differences was in 2011 when the FBI actually have named that the organized data theft is a bigger criminal industry than drug trading. And this is something that we've seen happening, which means that if in the past it was stealing your identity and stealing your information by going under your building and getting your mail in order to get some information to get a successful identity theft, today, using a quite simple attack, it's possible actually to get millions of records that will provide you all the identity theft you're interested in. So, as this webinar name, the top breaches, but this is a really interesting question because you'll be able by yourself to see that almost each and every big security firm and also a lot of reporters have named the top 10 breaches. But this is an interesting question. Before we'll start naming them and giving you some internal information about each and every case, it's a really interesting question. How can we really measure? Which means, can we truly evaluate which data breach is worst? How can we determine? Can we take a look at the amount of stolen records? Or do we take a look at the sensitivity of the stolen records? Or maybe we should just look at the type of the stolen records. For example, when Snowden have leaked information about secret agents, even though it was just a few thousands or a few hundreds in this list, is it worse than the 50 million records that was stolen from Evernote? And another example, when a huge healthcare service have been penetrated and 90,000 records of actually health records was stolen, is it worse than the Snowden leakage? So this is also a lot of interesting questions that pop up as time passes, that we see that people are talking about the mega data theft year like 2011, and we still see millions and records that are being stolen. And actually, even though a lot of solutions are being offered in the market, but still we do not see or able to see how can we really evaluate what is the big data breach. So why do we care? You know, we can go through endless amount of news alerts and endless amount of pieces about talking about the big data breaches, but why exactly do we care? I think the foremost is privately. We are consumers of online services. And it doesn't matter if I just downloaded Adobe Acrobat or some evaluation of a program, or I just using Facebook like anyone else. They have over 1 billion users now, so I do care privately. If my information was stolen, and the information can be started talking about the basic information like my home address or just the city I live in, some basic information, my email address was harvested, my phone numbers maybe, and then it's starting to get more and more personal. If someone have stolen my credential, even to my Facebook, many times people use the same password on Facebook, on Gmail, on their work email account, sometimes on their PayPal account, sometimes on their eBay account, and suddenly you are much more exposed just because someone have stole your information from a very, very basic low-level website. So privately, we already care. Most of us are using Facebook, most of us are using LinkedIn, most of us are using some sort of a social entertainment system, like many other, from Dropbox providing us the option to store our private files, and like Google, that we store a lot of files there, we store our emails, we store a lot of private information. So privately, we do care. How about the business-wise? Why do we care to see such huge amount of breached, and how come there's such that top breaches? Why do we care? As a business, we can identify the sector, the market sector that a business is working on. And we should truly try to see the result of such a breach. How much money does it cost? How the organization suffers from a big data breach, from a small data breach, or from any breach at all. And as I just mentioned before, many times users use the same passwords and the same credentials in their private accounts and in their business accounts. When they chose the password for your domain controller, many times they use the same password or almost the same password as part of their PayPal account and their LinkedIn account, and so and so. So if you provide access over VPN and you do not have a two-factor authentication to access your network, and you can be sure that at least some of your users use the same password they use in order to connect with a VPN to work that they use on their LinkedIn account and maybe on their Gmail account. So harvesting this kind of information provides you the option to actually know a lot more than you can expect, even though it's just a password of your employee Gmail account. So going forward, I think that another big question, and this is, I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a few minutes, it's how many real professional data breaches are happening on a daily basis that no one knows about. And this is an interesting question because we can see a lot of famous breaches that it took months to detect. It took sometimes over a year to detect. Some sophisticated hacker have wrote their very sophisticated malicious code that was running inside the organization or inside the service for months and sometimes years until it was detected. And during this time, not only that it was listening and viewing each and every transaction that happened as part of the service, and more than that, it's been able actually to interfere, to inject, to change, and to take advantage of the information that is passing through the system. So the real professional, what's called data breaches, are getting more and more sophisticated, and they are aiming about the highest targets that you can imagine. And in 2003, we definitely saw some huge changes in this. So before we go through the list, what we consider the top 10, I think it's really important to explain, first of all, the threat actors. Many times, it's just about criminal elements. We can call them hackers. It gives it a sexy name, but eventually, it's criminal elements. If someone is able to steal the list of customers that I have and then to sell it for $1,000 or $1 million because it's important for someone, those are still criminal elements. And that's what I've been saying for years. A bank robber is a bank robber. It doesn't matter if he's doing it with a gun or with a keyboard. And this is something that we all should keep in mind, that criminal elements are criminal elements. We can name them hackers, crackers, frackers, whatever. Eventually, it's about criminal activity. Hacktivist. It's been a huge hype 2 years ago with a lot of different hacktivist groups that just hacked into places, have published all the information, but more than that, most of the time the information is not being published, it's being sold, it's being abused, it's being manipulated. So this is also something that we have to keep in mind. And Snowden have taught us a few things about intelligence and surveillance system by governments, what exactly the US is doing and what it's able to do. This is something really interesting. So after talking a little bit about the threat actors, what are the threat vectors? How people are really attacking the system? And I think that to summarize how people are attacking the system, and the focus of any cyber attack eventually is divided to two main categories. The people vector. People vector, it means that eventually it's all about people. People are browsing the internet, people are opening documents, people are using their smartphones, their tablets, their laptop, their work PC, their home PC to connect to work, but people are one of the main targets. And it's a much easier target to interact with, because when I know someone have a WhatsApp and I can be identified as someone else and to send a WhatsApp message with a link, doing that as a person you trust, most likely you'll press on this link. And if this link includes a malware that will take over your smartphone and will provide the option to take over the control and the information included in your smartphone, then this is a much easier task than attacking multiple firewalls and multiple intrusion prevention system than aiming an attack on an organization. The other part of the focus is systems. And when I'm saying systems, a lot of times people just thinking about servers and applications, but it's much more complex than that. Because people are able today to attack the unprotected vector, which means your switches, your printers. Who exactly have installed a firewall on their printer? A printer is a full operating system that you do not have an access to, and you work with it as a black box. And as a black box, you have the option actually maybe to print with it or just to look at the print queues. But it still contains a full operating system, a full queue management. Some of them includes a full Java running machine, and you can check online and to see that people actually are writing exploits to printers. And if I'm able to get to a network, the first target that I will look for are the elements that you're not suspicious about me getting there. And if I have access and I took over your printer, then I know that no one will look and no one will sniff if I will connect from the printer maybe to your database, maybe to your file server. So I think summing up the focus, we can go forward and actually understand the threat economy. And this is a little complex slide, but it's important to understand that this is an industry. And like any other industry, we are talking about huge customers and a huge suppliers. And when I'm saying huge, I'm talking about big money. Estimations talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that are being spent over getting illegal information and supplying illegal information. So we have the writers, that people actually that write code, that writes the zero-day exploits or the malware that takes over smartphone, browsers, some computer software, some services that are available online. We have actually the abusers, people that use those tools in order to manipulate you and me and any other people. We have a lot of different networks and access networks that's providing this tool the option to send this information, to gain this information and to create a successful attack. And at the end, it's about getting the information and making big money out of it, even much greater than it started. So there's a full threat economy behind each and every attack that we'll talk about. So as I just mentioned before, each and every probably IT organization and a lot of security researchers have published their top 10, and this is the CRN top 10. And I'm going to talk about a few of these, but you can check online and you'll find a lot of different lists. But I'm going to focus, after we talked at the beginning, about how can exactly we measure? And I would like to start with our number 10 about the Pony botnet. The Pony botnet, there's been a lot of talking about that lately regarding a botnet network that actually retrieved and harvested more than 2 million users and usernames and passwords, and also number of different locations from Google, from Facebook, from Twitter. And eventually we were talking about a malware that was injected and was actually installed in hundreds of thousands. And according to some estimation, we're talking about more than 100 million computers worldwide. And this is also something that we have to keep in mind when we're talking about the attack vectors, and many times people do not know. Today, for someone to be able to hack into Facebook, that's a lot of work. And it doesn't matter how sophisticated the hacker is and how well he's financed, it will take him a lot of time. It can be, if it's extremely high level, it can take weeks, and it can take months, and sometimes more. But it's a lot of work with a lot of money. On the other hand, when I know that there is a lot of users of low-level websites that do not have the option to invest a lot of money in securing, so my target just changed. In order to get 1 million Facebook accounts, how many computers do I have to inject with some malware? How many, we can call it a malware, we can call it a virus, we can call it a Trojan horse. A lot of people name it differently, but eventually we are talking about a small application that is running in multiple computers, and he's harvesting the sensitive information that I'm interested. It can be Google accounts, it can be Facebook account, maybe PayPal accounts, but eventually this tiny malware runs on multiple computers. And the Pony botnet, even though it's not directly from database, and this specific Pony botnet was not aiming in order to reach the database, but it harvests a lot of different credentials to some of the most probably secured locations without attacking those secured locations. Google are investing endless amount of money on securing their services, and they're doing quite a good work. You can hardly hear about people who've been successfully attacking Gmail services, or more than that, the Google Play services, because they know their craft and they've been doing a lot of good work. On the other hand, when people are able to successfully attack and successfully see what exactly is going, so this is something really interesting. So this is our number 10, actually, even though it's not aimed directly to the database, but this gives a very interesting perspective regarding the attackability surface of an attack and how exactly you can handle it. Number 9. Without a doubt, it's Evernote, even though a lot of different sites have named this the number 1 breach because of the amount, but I see that a little differently. It started by a very nice email, and I'm not cynical or kidding. Evernote took responsibility, and once they detected that their system was attacked and information was stolen probably, they have just alerted the entire user list, which is more than 50 million users, that you have to reset your password. And the password is probably the weakest level of security currently in the market, unless we're talking about two-factor authentication or three-factor authentication, that less than 2%, actually less than 0.2% of the entire users worldwide actually use two-factor authentication. I believe that as time passes, it will get more and more. The attack about Evernote was about getting a huge amount of usernames, email addresses, and encrypted password. This is really important because people think, they stole my encrypted password, so I don't have to worry about. This is more or less bullshit. Excuse my word, please. Because to be able to detect the password from encrypted password list is just a matter of time. And many times people got rainbow lists. People got a lot of different information, a lot of different lists that can automatically make search inside of huge lists of encrypted password, and they already know the results. And actually, we already have this as a service. A lot of attack tools use services that just equals encrypted password to the real password and give you the real password without the need to run a sophisticated attack on the password files. So Evernote, without a doubt, took responsibility and have alerted their customer. There was no credit cards and there was no, let's say, more interesting PII, but this is a huge stolen information. Number 8, this is, I think, the probably the most common hacktivist that happened this year. And this is something really interesting because I will explain how come. And this is a little bit of a game changer. The Syrian Electronic Army, the SEA, and they took this crowd without a doubt, have targeted a completely different destination. They got really famous because they took over a Twitter handle of President Obama, and they've been able to publish information on his behalf and by other handles' behalf. And after that, they went forward and also defaced the website of the Washington Post, the New York Times, the National Public Radio, Al Jazeera, and other major news websites. The thing was that by being able to take over a really famous Twitter handle and to publish information on his behalf, I guess about 20% of the viewers will click on this link without thinking twice that just maybe someone have took over this handle and is publishing information on his behalf. So even though it looks kind of 90s attacks about defacement and taking over handles, this is a much more sophisticated. Any data breach is about gaining and harvesting information. It can be intellectual information, it can be intellectual property information, it can be a lot of PII, it can be credit card information. So how exactly by taking over a website or taking over a Twitter handle, I'm able? If I've crafted a sophisticated malware that will take over your Chrome browser or your Internet Explorer or maybe your tablet browser, and then I will publish a link from President Obama's Twitter account, how many people will click on it the first 10 minutes? It can be thousands, it can be sometimes hundreds of thousands of people, and this will provide me the option to harvest a lot of different information from multiple regions and from multiple vectors, and some of them, by the way, that have clicked this link were probably clicking this link from inside an organization. And is that enough for me to gain access? If they use a sophisticated security solution in order to make sure that their browsing is not attacked. So many times it works on signature matching. And if I just crafted something new that is still not being signed by any antivirus or content filtering provider, I'm able to get access to those organizations using a public link that a lot of people pressed on because it's being published by someone famous. So this is without a doubt our number 8, the Syrian Electronic Army. And what I've done, and they're still working, and I guess they will go on the big news and the big handles one more time without a doubt. Number 7, we call it the silent breach. Any sophisticated attacks or any well-financed attack would like the attack to be successful and unheard of and undetected. So the question is, how many organizations are currently under attack and they have no clue whatsoever that it's happening? How many people have invested enough money to purchase the sophisticated solution that will assist them to know that people are actually inside their network already? And this specific view, I'm talking about a specific example in the New York Times, that they revealed that a really sophisticated Chinese hackers group have been inside their network after 4 months. And I'm keep saying this again and again, all it takes is just one click and a full enterprise can be breached. And it's happening almost on a weekly or a monthly basis. So the silent breach is the most, I think, lethal breach, that you are not aware that it happened, that you are not aware how it happened, and you're not aware that it's still ongoing attack. An organization of any size are vulnerable to those types of attacks of the unknown, the silent breach, the most lethal one. And some types of sectors, like the financial organization and the healthcare organization, they have a strict guidelines, not all of them, but a lot of them, about disclosing data breaches. But still, I think that most of the organization will pay a lot of money and will go through a lot of work in order not to let anyone knows that it happened, actually. Our number 7, without a doubt, is the silent breach. Number 6, this is not a new focus, but a really interesting one about aiming on the healthcare services. And this year we had some really interesting breaches when it comes to information breaches, and those are just a few. By the way, to each and every one of you who's interested to take a deeper look about organizations that have been hacked, you can go to a website and you can check it out later, called privacyrights.org/data breach. And in this website, you're able actually to look inside and to search for the most recent according to different categories. For example, in which year it happened, what was the attack type, how exactly, and what was the organization type, and also what was the type of breach. For example, it's been hacked, it's been a payment card fraud, it's been a portable device that was stolen, and here you can search and actually see a lot of information about the type of data breach. This is from the 6th of December. We are talking about a week ago. Horizon Healthcare Services, the Blue Cross Shield, Horizon in Newark, are publishing how many records have been stolen, how exactly it's been done, and there are thousands of different records, and you can see and take a look what's going on, and you can search inside that. So please feel free to take a look. This is really interesting to see which type of organization and which names of organization have suffered from a lot of huge. Why am I mentioning is number 6, the healthcare breaches. When we're talking about information, one of the most sensitive information are healthcare records. What kind of diseases we got, what kind of actually treatments we are going through, what kind of medicine we are consuming. This information worth a lot of money. Not only for regular hackers, actually a lot to a lot of medical companies, a lot of pharmaceutical companies. If, for example, Haggis or Pfizer are now about to release a new medicine that is going to compete with a different giant in the pharmaceutical market, how much money they're willing to pay to get a list of 1 million users of the competitor's medicine. Trust me, they're willing to pay millions of dollars for that information. And hackers have understood that and are going through a huge hard work when it comes about getting this kind of information. So this kind of information that is stored mostly in the healthcare service and organizations that have to comply with HIPAA. And the HIPAA compliance and regulation, for example, is not in-depth enough with the restriction regarding how you should exactly secure the information. I think the HIPAA compliance and regulation instruction should be updated sometimes next year, and this will provide it will provide a healthcare organization a deeper knowledge about the way that they should implement security solution and making a smarter choices about choosing the different information. So those records have been stolen, sometimes from direct database access, sometimes from credentials being stolen from some PC or stolen hardware, but healthcare is a huge destination and it's not gonna get any better to healthcare services anywhere. There's a lot of PII information, a lot of private names, private addresses, social security numbers, a lot of, and goes without saying, the entire treatment history we went through at the healthcare service provider. And this information probably is the most expensive when we're trying, when organizations are trying to buy this kind of information, which is, goes without saying, illegal to own or trade this kind of information. Number 5, living social. Living social is probably, I don't know about you guys, but I've been using Living Social for quite a while. It's hard, but I'm trying to maintain a different password and a different username and a different email account almost to each and every huge service online. Living Social, it was alerted in April that also 50 million people information was breached. They have not disclosed how exactly it was breached, but when attackers have direct access to so much information, 50 million, not only they can trade it and get a lot of money for what's called a fresh information. If this information was not publicly sent, and if this not publicly published, then people will pay a lot of money for what's called the fresh information that was not publicly published yet. When we have so much information, then what's called the fun begins for hackers. They have your emails, they can see your latest action when it comes to living social activities about the different information that was traded there, the different transaction that was traded there, and then they can go forward and start running phishing attacks on those users when they have all that much history. The effect here was a little more critical than Evernote that included password, encrypted password and username, but people could actually see a transaction running inside of the living social. So this is our number 5. Number 4, US government breaches. So people are aiming without a doubt to get into US government breaches. Without the biggest government, still there are endless new attacks on foreign governments, like the Chinese government, like the British government, like the Russian government. And which information really is available inside? Inside the Department of Energy, and this was actually leaked in July, 104,000 employees that are employed under the DOE. The information was actually leaked. The implication is endless, because not only that we are talking about a huge amount of information, we are talking about government employees, and this kind of information can lead to a very interesting attack vectors, how to get more inside of a government networks, how to get more inside of a government that attack destinations. And many times people in this world is about how getting closer and closer to more interesting secrets and more interesting information. So this specific attack was being able to be enforced by someone just opening an Adobe product. Many times it's a PDF file, but it can be different type of files, which can embed endless amount, which attackers embed inside a lot of different exploits and malware and attack vectors inside of a PDF file that you open by an Acrobat reader. And when a person gets a PDF from someone that he trusts, even though it's not the real person, but he cannot identify it in a few seconds, he will open this document. And when you open this document, his computer most of the time will be compromised. And then what's called the fun starts. And this is, and in a few minutes we'll talk about attack vectors and who exactly we should be frightened from when we're talking about it. Those type of breaches and attacks on US government offices worldwide, and also all different kinds of US government offices, have started from the late 70s. People are trying together, and they will continue to try together. But today, and I'm sure that they have a lot of information security personnel and a lot of different information security solutions, Today, there are endless amount of huge organizations. Actually, some of them are government organizations that will go through a huge extent in order to get inside the US government offices. Number three, this is by some of the analysts will consider this probably number one by many different. I still do not consider this number one, but the data broker botnet is extremely interesting to take a look about the huge steps that have been performed by attackers. This was announced lately about data aggregator companies like Dun & Bradstreet and LexisNexis and also Crow Background. And those type of companies that passes huge amount of business and private information have been penetrated by sophisticated attacks. And it's been running for a month, so we cannot even estimate how many PII records have been stolen from this information. And when we're talking about Dun & Bradstreet about getting social security numbers of private people, unlike credit card numbers that you can just cancel, change, and get a new card in 2 days, it's really hard to change and cancel your social security number or your parents' address or any other part of information that you're able to run successful identity theft using this kind of information. So this was my estimation that probably stole more than 100 million records in a few months running inside of those organizations that probably contains hundreds of billions of records eventually. So this is no doubt one step forward for any attack aiming at the big, no, this is not the big, this is the whales. This is the huge whales information aggregation companies. So we are talking about the big, even huge attack destinations. Sorry, it's back. I think number two, without a doubt, is the Snowden leaks. We are talking about, well, it's been sad enough, and it was part of any breaking news alert during when it happened, so everyone knows what exactly Snowden and how much he made America suffer. But the interesting part, the interesting insight to get from this, that how exactly Snowden got all these materials. And it's important to say that he was not a US government employee. Snowden actually wasn't working for any agency. He was working for an outside defense contractor. And he wasn't even a full-time employee, and he only stayed there for a few months. So this should make all of us think how not only how we secure the entrance to our infrastructure from the internet, but more important than that, how exactly we secure the access from external companies and external employees. What kind of access even we provide to the most sophisticated and to the most advanced outsource employees when it comes to accessing to the information inside of our infrastructure. This just made me think how many thoughts have been actually performed by those organizations. So when it comes to the Snowden leaks, this is a huge, I think, wake-up call for each and every one of us that we think that we know what's happening inside our network and who is actually able to get inside the resources that we store inside our databases. So this is number two. And going forward, our drums, please. The number one. This is probably the leading story of 2013, Adobe. Adobe I think there are two main factors looking at this huge breach of 150 million user IDs and hashed password. The possibilities of running endless amount of attacks on those type of stolen records is endless. Just think how many of the 38 million active users from this database. The information is priceless. Each and every attack vector that I just mentioned during the past 40 minutes was talking about what can be done with fresh information and with information that was not publicly published yet. And this is a huge, huge breach. Each and every user who almost used Adobe applications that have registers and have their user IDs is vulnerable now to multiple vector of attacks. If is using the password by a different service, if his information or application information is sensitive in any way. And I think one of the big things, this is not just a small startup. This is a Fortune company. This is a huge tech monster. How come with all the money they invest in security, so much information was exposed and leaked? And going past through this list, I'm sure that it made you think about a few different things about your organization and about the information you stored internally inside your databases. Summing it up, that hackers have become professionals. Hackers from hire, this is a daily usage today for hackers. They will go with the biggest financial results. Most of the information that we've just seen is stored inside of a database, and this makes me think and also get a little bit deeper about the attackability surface of a system. We have a database and we have configured multiple authentication and authorization system. We have put it behind a firewall, but eventually the attackability service have not been reduced yet. Because getting the information from the database, I don't need to attack the database. Why wouldn't I just attack your DBA computer? And when you see suddenly at midday that someone is running backup on your database from his computer, is it fine or is it a security alert? Even though he used an authorized credential and the connection was created from his PC, is it making sense that someone will run twice a day backup of multiple databases to his own PC at midday? So we have to start taking a look at the bigger picture. We have to start seeing what exactly is happening inside of our infrastructure. So the attackability surface is much greater. And this is just an example. If you're running Windows SQL Server, and when you're running Windows SQL Server, for example, it's not only about securing the SQL Server itself by username and password. All of those attack vectors are part of the ability to attack a Windows servers. And many times when someone is attacking a Windows server, it's in order to get the information from the database, which is much harder to attack. So each and every one of you heard enough about SQL injection attacks just in a highlight. You do not need to have direct access to the database in order to have a successful SQL injection attack. It's the option to send a SQL command to your database using a front end. Many times it's a web front end, but many other times it's about the option to send it even through a closed source application. Any operating system security and network security won't help with a SQL injection because the commands that got to the database are legit. SQL injection is still the #1 attack when we're talking about stealing information from databases. Which applications are vulnerable? All of them. Which database are vulnerable? all of them. Yes, you can get better security to your application, you can get better security to your databases, but eventually this vulnerability is just getting worse as time passes. And you can read a lot of articles why SQL injection will not go away, with all the hardening of the application and so on and so on. The methodology of SQL injection is once you are able to send a command through a vulnerable front end, a vulnerable web application, it's not just about extracting data from the database. It's about extending your influence and starting attacking additional servers. If I've been able to get to your database server and to get some sort of an operating system interaction, I'm able to expand my influence by attacking different servers, your file server, your PC servers, or whatever servers we're talking about. SQL injection result, it's not just about getting the information from the database. It's about endless amounts of attacks that can get from SQL injection. About GreenSQL, we are a database security company. We do not offer any different types of security, and we're offering 4 main components when it comes to the database. Security, auditing, performance, and masking all are in order to focus to increase the security level of your systems. How exactly we work? We are working as a front end to the database as a full proxy solution, which means that once GreenSQL is up and running, your entire connection goes through GreenSQL before it reaches the database. And during this process, we are providing you, as I just mentioned, 4 different components. Database security, the option to detect and block SQL injections at the database layer, a full separation of duties, a full database firewall, and the option to run database intrusion detection and prevention at the database layer before any application. Any log that will be generated because someone have tried to bypass those security enforcement, you will have a full details regarding the session information, regarding the logging information, and a lot of different part of information that will assist you to analyze and to have sort of a forensic analysis regarding someone who tries just to retrieve information from the database. Database activity monitoring will provide you the option to monitor any activity to the database, administrative activity, or actually access to a sensitive location inside the database. Any access to the database according to multiple regulation should be stored. Sometimes, it's just the administrative commands, but sometimes it's also the access to sensitive information. As part of the GreenSQL auditing feature, we also provide what's called advanced activity monitoring, which is eventually a clear audit trail regarding changes running to the database. So you can have a clear view of a before and after when someone is trying to run an attack on your database. The third component of GreenSQL is actually dynamic data masking. How can we mask sensitive information when someone is trying to retrieve it? And I'm not just talking about your off-site testing environment. I'm talking about real-time DBAs or outsourced DBA. Snowden, for example, if he had access to the database, why shouldn't sensitive information should be masked? Why shouldn't it be masked? When we're talking about multiple application and call representatives that have access to the database, why should they see PII of your customers? And using dynamic data masking, you have the option to truly mask the sensitive information in real time without any change to your application and without any change to your database. I think that it's important to say that it doesn't matter if you're using a cloud-based database or you're using an on-prem database service, the security is still your responsibility. And maybe they will go through a lot of efforts in order to secure the infrastructure, but still the responsibility regarding what's happening inside of those stored database containers is your responsibility. So I think that trying to sum up what we just talked about and the number of breaches, and now we're going to go to QA. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Please feel free to write down any questions you might have. If you prefer contacting us directly after this session, you're also most welcome, gentlemen. We have one question regarding why company publish they've been breached. Well, a lot of it's about regulators that demand them to publicly alert their customers when the information have been breached. Sometimes it's ethics. It's about the importance of understanding that the value of your customer will actually increase if you've alerted them that someone have attacked. There's a lot of common sense inside of it, but without a doubt, the company is suffering from what's called the attack post effect. And the post effect means that the value of the company might be reduced because of it. We have a question about what's the performance impact of this extra layer of security. Because in GreenSQL we worked really hard on the security component in order to make sure that the performance will not be causing any problems, we also included 3 different performance mechanisms as part of GreenSQL. The database caching that you can enable according to your own needs per per table, per query, per database. We included a connection pool management and also protocol optimization for the old versions of protocols. So most cases, even if you do not enable the database caching, their overhead can be performed between 1% to 7%. Using the performance features, you are actually accelerating. So there's no impact. Actually, your user experience have been accelerated. We have several customers who use GreenSQL today in order just to accelerate their SharePoint application or to accelerate their web application they written by themselves. So I think the best answer will be that using a very easy to implement POC at your infrastructure, you can check it by yourself, sir, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. Any other question, gentlemen? Regarding pricing, I'm not going to talk about it here in a public session, but we'll make sure that someone contacts you right away, sir, and we'll provide you the quote of the different solution that you need, sir, in order to secure your infrastructure right away. Okay, I would like to thank each and every one of you for contacting this session today, and please feel free to contact us if you have any other question whatsoever. And yes, this, by the way, presentation will be uploaded to a YouTube channel, and you can also get a copy of the presentation if you contact us directly, sir. And I would like to wish each and every one of you a wonderful 2014 and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I hope that you will get what you want for the new year, of course. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day. And I hope to see you soon in our next webinar that will take place shortly. Thank you and have a great day.